Hey folks, welcome back to Nikki T Live. I'm your host Nick Taylor, and today I am hanging out with Kevin Ball, aka KBall, as some of you might know him. And I'm just noticing that I spelt my name Nick to Siler, so I'm gonna fix that while Kevin, you go ahead and introduce yourself there.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kevin or KBall. I guess in this context, I'll be KBall. And I can actually talk a little bit about how I distinguish between those names because I've thought a lot about that. And yeah, if you may know me from places like JS Party, things like that, but I'm a software developer, engineer, manager, entrepreneur. I don't know. Did you want me to go into my whole background?
Yeah. Well, first off, yeah, no, thanks for hanging today. I know you got a lot on the go. You got this new business and stuff. I think it'd be pretty awesome because I know, at least for myself, and I would assume most other people, they know you as K-Ball from JS Party. I know you as a host and like person that runs panels there and stuff, and which is a great podcast, by the way. But yeah, I'd be kind of curious, like what your tech journey's kind of been, not to sound too cheesy, but and to like
Sure.
kind of where you are these days. So
Yeah. Sure. So I I started out, I got into tech by accident. So I'm one of the many people in tech who did not study computer science. I actually studied physics in school and I
okay,
graduated and had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to do physics.
okay,
But I knew where I wanted to be because I had been in a long distance relationship and I was like, I am going where she is. And that
yeah,
happened to be in Silicon Valley.
okay,
And I kind of stumbled through a few different jobs. I worked doing test prep. I worked as a substitute teacher. I got to teach kindergartners and other fun stuff. And then
okay,
I sort of landed a testing job that was essentially performance QA. It was
okay,
called a benchmark engineer, and it was at a supercomputing startup. So it was a startup that was doing both hardware and software targeted at supercomputing space. And this would have been 2004. So
okay,
supercomputers have come a long way since then, and
yeah,
now
yeah,
mostly live in the cloud. Then it was like, you want to bring something up, okay, rent your colo space, get your things in. So that was my entree into tech, and
okay,
it was I didn't have much of a programming background. I'd done a little bit because at that time in physics, like there were some computational courses. I'd
okay,
done a little bit with Fortran. I'd done a lot with Mathematica, but I wasn't a software developer.
okay,
But
gotcha.
it gave me an entree into this industry and a place to start learning from. And startups are great for this.
Hmm.
One of the themes that will come up in this is like, I'm a startup guy. I've worked at I think four people's startups. I've co-founded two of my own. Like I've this is a space I've been around a lot, and startups are a phenomenal place to learn.
Yeah,
Um, and so I started teaching myself, and there were folks there who could mentor me, but a lot of it was self-run. I first was learning scripting languages. I think my first one was uh, Perl, and then I moved into Python and was writing
okay,
test frameworks using those. I started getting more into like, okay, what is doing deeper analysis, understanding what's actually going on in our product, maybe writing a few things for the production product, kind of moving in that space. Um, and that company eventually got acquired. The acquiring
okay,
company sucked. They had basically bought us as an insurance policy in case the market went a different way from their main product. And so they fed us just enough resources to keep us alive, but not enough to do anything interesting.
oh, okay, okay, gotcha,
So
okay,
I stuck around for about a year of that, collected some golden handcuffs, also managed to accumulate quite a case of burnout. And I quit. And
okay,
I quit without any agenda, which is also a theme that'll show up. I've left jobs without any sense of what I was going to do next multiple times
okay,
in my career. Um,
okay,
so I left that. I ended up just volunteering for a while. At the time, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to stay in tech because, as I said, I'd
okay,
gotten there by accident. I had enjoyed it for a while, but then also burned myself out and was
hmm,
not having fun at this last company. I was kind of like, how much of this, you know, do I actually want?
yeah, yeah,
um, and so I started volunteering, and I volunteered a few different places, but the one that that influenced my direction the most was actually I ended up volunteering at the Obama campaign
Oh, no
in
way. That's very cool.
2007 before
Okay.
anybody knew who he was.
Okay.
And one of the things about that is like, regardless of what you think of his politics, and I've told this story to folks who are very conservative, very liberal, but regardless of what you think of him, the way he ran his campaign was fascinating because it was the most ground up volunteer run campaign that
Okay.
I've ever seen in a presidential political situation. I was in California. The whole state of California in the primaries had 6 paid staffers by the end, right? For 50 million people. It was essentially all volunteer run. And that experience, I thought originally I was going to start volunteering there like 2 hours a week, but they sucked me in. So 2 hours became 4 hours a week, became 8 hours a week, became 16 hours a week, became 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. Which
Okay.
is what I now describe as organizer hours. Right? That's what political organizers tend to do during
Okay.
a campaign. And I learned a couple things from that. One, I learned that I really loved the ability to sort of directly see the impact of what I was doing. Because what would happen in here is people would come in, and I don't know if you remember, but like end of the Bush years, people were super disillusioned with the direction the country was going. And they would come into this and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I can do anything, but I want to help. And we could like train them up, point them in a direction, and get them feeling super empowered.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. And a lot of the people that I volunteered with there went on to start nonprofits, start startups, do other things because it was this very like empowering experience of, oh my gosh, I can do something, I can have an impact.
Okay.
I also learned that I missed technology. There's like something that coding scratches in my brain, some itch in there that like helping them with IT did not satisfy and doing, all this organizing work did not satisfy. So
Yeah.
I started looking for something that would let me do both. And I ended up at a web startup focused on political and activism online
Okay.
called Causes. And they got in early on the Facebook app boom. And so for a very long time, we were the largest non-game app on Facebook. And this
Okay.
was my entree into the web, going at a startup that had gotten, they launched the Facebook app when the Facebook app platform launched, had
Hmm.
a million or 1.5 million users like out the gate from nowhere. Um,
Okay.
and during the time that I was there, scaled from that up to over 100 million people using this piece of software, which in 2007 2008 felt like a lot. Like Google and
Yeah.
Facebook were doing more, but that was scale at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's pretty
um,
cool. For that time. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and that was my entree into the web. I still remember interviewing there. It's a web startup, right? And I'm like, I don't know anything about web. I can code. I can show you
Yeah.
that I can code, though I had not had a software development position. But I also was like super interested in their space of this, like trying to facilitate activism online. And so I remember doing like a coding sample with them, and it was like parse through something in the directory structure and output a list of things. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, what format would you like the list in? And they said, oh, just do an HTML list. And I said, okay, great. What's that? And uh, they kind of looked at me and then told me, and I did it. And obviously, I did well enough that they were willing to overlook my lack of web knowledge at the time. Um,
Okay.
but that was my entree into the web, and this was early Ruby on Rails, and kind of building up this monolithic application. But having to make it scale. And like I remember some of the stuff doing later was like, how do we shard our database so that we can actually scale across this? Because NoSQL databases weren't really a thing yet. The
Yeah.
very first version of Cassandra came out towards the end, and we were like trying to figure out if it was stable enough for us to do it. But anyway, that was a good time. That was really my entry into the web. Um, I left them because I moved, basically. So
Okay.
I'd mentioned I'd moved to Silicon Valley for a girl. Well, I married her, and then she went to graduate school. And so we moved away.
Okay.
We went down to San Diego. Along the way, and this might be an interesting diversion, we spent 3 months living in Guatemala, which was another life-changing experience of
Oh,
just like
very cool.
living something place totally different with people who live in a very different way and approach the world very differently. Um, but we moved away. I tried working for them remotely for a while. being the only remote engineer on an otherwise co-located company before Slack and Zoom and these other things was not a great experience. So
Yeah.
that did not last.
Yeah. No.
And so once again, I left without any idea of what I was going to be doing. And I started exploring in the startup space there, and ended up co-founding a startup focused on where we ended up landing was environmentally friendly fashion online. So trying to help
Okay.
people move from flash fashion, all these different things into something that was more sustainable.
Okay.
Um, and we ended up essentially building a two-sided marketplace plus recommendation engine where you could come in and say, hey, like normally I buy from Gap or Banana Republic, and we could map you based on style and price point to equivalent brands where we could show you the whole life cycle. Like who produced the dyes? What chemicals are they using? Who did the
Okay.
labor for this? Like how did this all work? Um, and surface that to folks. And so
Okay.
that was my first like founder experience. We worked on that startup for about 3 years, raised a little bit of money, not a huge amount, scaled a little bit, not a huge amount. And then Amazon came in, went into the same space, launched a site called vine.com, which has since gone away, but that
Yeah.
worked with many of our same brands, cut our margins to almost nothing, and
Okay.
out advertised us. And so we died. I refer to that period as graduate school with a lottery ticket, right? It could have worked out really well, but mostly I learned a ton.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, It sounds like it was a
let's
great experience too. Like, I'm, I feel like there's a theme in a lot of stuff you're doing here, which is like you're definitely interested in tech, but all these things you've talked about so far are like causes for good or helping out people. You know, whether that's political, the planet, and stuff. So, just wanted to call that out. I think that's just pretty cool that you've been
yeah, I think
choosing.
that was I think that key discovery for me early on was like working at the supercomputing company was cool, but like the map to impact was so long. It was like, okay, we make this thing faster, which maybe helps this researcher get to something a little faster. And then they'll publish a paper, and like 10 or 15 years down the road, maybe something will change in the world.
Yeah.
Whereas, when I got into volunteering, I was able to see impact on people immediately. And so that is definitely something that I've looked for, of like, how can I map this out to impact throughout the rest of my career?
Yeah, and I totally feel that, like, 'cause it's cool. I mean, I don't have the same journey as you, but I did, like, I graduated from university at the end of like early 2001, and then so like I did Fortran on a work term, and like I,
Hmm.
I unbelievably I actually took a COBOL course too, and all
That
kinds
I've
of
never done.
it's a funny language because it reads like English, but like spacing is what makes or breaks the program. And
Yeah.
but uh, but I like tinkering with things, and I think one thing about web development that just always enamored me with was like I remember like late 90s or maybe mid 90s, like I just remember being on a Windows machine and notepad.exe writing an HTML page. My internet service provider at the time, when it was dial up, I had to literally call the support and say, can you give me read write access to my CGI bin so I can have my
Yep.
counter
Yep. Yep.
increment and
Yep.
stuff. So, uh, but I was from those early days. Oh, hey, Becca. From those early days, I was just already hooked. Like the the
Totally.
Geo the GeoCities days and stuff were super fun. And almost making your site look not that great on purpose. The under construction, the animated gifs, but it is weird. Like I did go to university as well, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I remember going to high school with folks, and like somebody's like, I'm gonna be a doctor, and like this is
I
like
know, right? Like those people always felt unreal to me. I'm like, how do you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, I'm like, it's grade 7. Like I barely remember what I had for lunch today, and like,
Yeah.
I'm excited about the Disney afternoon or something, so it was I don't know, just really different. And like I I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and it's a little I'm in Montreal, so like in Quebec, it's different from the rest of Canada. We go up to grade 11, and then we kind of have like a pre-university thing. It's called
Hmm.
CEGEP. I forget what it stands for. It's French, but so you have this like kind of 2 year period before you go to university to kind of figure out what you, well, not necessarily what to figure out what you want to do. It's just like another step, and it's
Hmm.
kind of nice because you're not spending money on university at this point.
Right.
And I don't know. I remember I was going out with somebody, and I bombed my first semester because I was spending too much time with her. But then, and I was in pure and applied sciences at the time, which is like, you're taking physics, calculus, biology, I forget what else. But in the end, like I got booted out of that because of that first semester. But I ended up in creative arts, and at the time, at least, you could take whatever you want. So I ended up going into mathematics, taking some cal courses, and I took a C++ course. And I remember the final exam. It was literally draw a Christmas tree with stars with C++, just looping, just to
Hmm.
build out
Hmm.
an ASCII Christmas tree. And like honestly, that was like the main decision for me to go into computer science. It wasn't like I was super passionate about it, but and even in university I wasn't that passionate about it, but the web is the part that always stuck with me. And they didn't teach web at the time. Like we
Right.
were taking courses on databases, data structures, nothing to do with
Totally.
web anything or even JavaScript. So it's but it's something that's always kind of pulled me in. It's something I always am fascinated by because you can literally just write something and publish it, and it's literally live. So it's went on a bit of a tangent
Well,
there. I'm not
and
sure why,
Netlify
but
makes that easier, right? I just push it up to it's like it's so easy now. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally
That,
agree.
thank you for the employer
I'll
shout
I'll do
out,
the
but
plug there. I mean, it reminds me of, I mean, it's a subset, but I remember Heroku being such a miraculous breakthrough of like, I don't have to worry
yeah,
about setting up my hosting or setting up my production environment at all. I push this thing to in my source control and it's live. Like jaw drop
yeah.
moment, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. And it's yeah, that all that Git push, it is magic. Like wherever you're pushing these days, it's I don't know. Like people always talk about being overwhelmed. Like you hear a lot in the JavaScript ecosystem how people are just like overwhelmed, and
Mhm.
I get that sentiment, but at the same time, I'm like, just this is amazing. We have so many amazing tools. It's such a great time to be a dev,
Well, I
but
think
I
we do
do.
it to ourselves, right? And this
Mhm.
comes back a little bit to the like knowing what you want to do and passion thing, right? Like there's this mythos that runs through a lot of our ecosystem of you've got to be super passionate. You've got to
Mhm.
only want to do code. You've got to be wanting to do code all hours of day and night and weekends and whatever if you're going to keep up. And I think it's baloney, right?
Yeah,
Like
totally.
honestly, you like one thing that is true in our industry is things keep changing, so you have to keep learning. And it is
Yeah.
easier to keep putting in the time to learn if you really enjoy it and are passionate about it. So like that's the
Oh
seed
yeah.
of truth there, but you don't have to learn everything.
Mhm.
Like the point is not the technology, the point is what we do with the technology. And if you learn one tool really well and it will
Yeah.
continue to work for you and you will continue to create value for people and that's the point.
Yeah, totally. And uh, that really resonates with me because I remember when I first started, like, this was like, what was the company? There was, it doesn't matter, but basically there was the big tech boom in the early 2000s. And then like, I got like flown home to go interview at Nortel. That was it. It was a big telecom company. And then basically they had massive layoffs and stuff. And so like when I was applying for jobs, it took me about a year to find a job. I was doing internet technical support, and then I was doing some administrative work, but I was doing the thing which nowadays I tell people all the time, just don't do this. I was like the champion of hello world in every language that I would look at, and
Yeah.
it meant nothing, like I somehow in my lizard brain I convinced myself, hey, I did, print, in static main in Java, I printed hello world, okay, I must know Java now, and it was really detrimental to my learning. And it was only later on that, like, I've always been a fan of JavaScript. I did a lot of .NET and C# as well, like for the first 2/3 of my career. But
Mhm.
it was only once, getting to your point about kind of focusing on one thing maybe and getting good at it, because then you can just move on to other things. Like, I don't do Python, but I feel confident enough in my
Yeah.
abilities that if I had to look at Python code, and also you have stuff like Copilot or ChatGPT to translate if you need to these days. But I feel like I would be confident enough to understand what's going on in that code, even if I don't code in it day to day. So it's and and what you were saying too about it really isn't just about the code. Like I'm early on, I felt like it was about the code, and
Mhm.
now it's more like am I delivering business value for where I'm working at? Like you can't say like, hey, yeah, the new version of React came out. Let's refactor the whole code base. Yeah, that'd be great, but we do have a budget. We have features we've got to ship, and
I mean, I
like unless
think
you, yeah,
at the end of it, it comes down to we're doing this thing to help people with something, right?
yeah,
And sometimes a new technology will make it much easier to help people with something, right? Like I love ChatGPT. It's
hmm
great. It makes a number of things a lot easier. We are in this like hype bubble phase of it where it's like, okay, apply it to everything. And it turns out
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not actually good at everything. It's good at
yeah,
something. And, you know, it's the same as for any new technology, right? Like, why am I putting this in? Why am I learning about this? Well, it's probably to try to help someone with something. And the
yeah,
clearer you can get on what is that underlying human problem that you're trying to solve, the more you'll be able to say, like, is this applicable here or is it not?
yeah, yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And this, I guess I don't know if this is a good segue, but we didn't really talk about it so much yet, but like it's the title of the stream, but we're going to talk about coaching and why it's helpful for engineers. And uh, let's go ahead and shamelessly plug first. So you've been an engineer, like you said, you've been a founder. I think most
Mhm.
recently we were talking just before the stream. You've been an engineering manager, so you've got what I would consider a lot of street cred in the engineering field. Which I think brings a lot of credibility to what you're doing these days, which is coaching. And
Mhm.
so, if you want to, maybe we'll definitely get into coaching, but maybe just talk a bit about the company or what you've been up to there, and then we can kind of maybe dig into some coaching.
Sure. So, I mean, high level, I think it does relate to what we've been talking about because it, the reason that I think coaching is interesting from an engineering standpoint is
Hmm.
as you move up in your career as an engineer, the problems that become important for you to solve become less and less about the details of the technology, right? Like when you first get
Yeah.
started, you're trying to learn how do I code anything, and then you gradually are learning, okay, how do I code a larger system? How do I architect this in a way that's going to be maintainable? Like all these different things,
Yeah.
and like there's a learning curve there, and there's lots of great resources out there to learn that, and that will take you to about a senior engineering level.
Hmm.
And at that point, looking forward, whether you want to go up the kind of IC leadership track, so going to staff engineer, principal, and those different things, or if you want to move over into management,
Yeah.
those technical skills, while still important, become table stakes. Like you need them
Hmm.
to be at the table, but they are
Yeah.
not what's driving your impact. What's driving your impact is higher level skills, more human skills around can you accurately understand what the business problem is and find a way to translate that into something that's solvable technically? Can you
Yeah.
align people on what needs to be done and how to do it? Can you teach and mentor other people? Can you communicate your ideas in a way that you can get people on board? Like all
Hmm.
of these human skills become what drives your impact more and more. And it's a very different skill set. And it's a very different set of learnings. And there's not nearly as many resources out there to support you. And so, I think I have been blessed to work with managers and mentors that helped me learn those skills along the way. But
Yeah.
it was also a really long and painful process.
Okay.
I think if you're lucky, when you start hitting that point, you have a manager or a senior peer or someone who can help guide you through, like, wait, what is this new world and how do I deal with it? But a lot of people aren't that lucky, and so that was actually the inspiration for me to go into coaching, um,
Okay.
which is essentially to help people with that transition point and beyond it because it continues to be a challenge, right? The further you go in
Hmm.
an organization, the more challenging those interpersonal and other human questions become. And so my business that I started after I left the most recent company I was working at, is kind of focused on this concept of I'm using the term human skills because I hate the word soft skills. I think that
Yeah, I don't like soft skills either.
it causes a lot of problems and it taints the way that we think about them. But so I'm focused on this concept of human skills for the tech industry because that is where my background is and where I understand things. And so coaching is a piece of that. And we'll talk about more about coaching and specifically like what is it? What does it look like? But I'm
Yeah,
also doing a lot of conversations. I'm interviewing folks and publishing those interviews. I'm working towards a podcast focused on this space and really kind of flesh out what are all the non-technical skills that go into success in this industry because there's a lot.
yeah.
And the further you go, the more they matter.
Yeah, no, totally. And I can kind of like I can relate like you said it was a little rough kind of like in certain spots for you, and I can relate to that. Like people talk nowadays about having mentors and all that. Like I feel like we're kind of from the similar era. Like when I started programming, there was no Google, there was no Stack Overflow, YouTube kind of just popped on the scene after I graduated university. Like Google Chrome literally didn't exist yet. Netscape was still around, but so there's like and I remember my first job, like I never really had a mentor, to be honest. Uh like my first couple jobs there, my first job, I'm honestly super thankful for this forever, but like getting that first job is really hard. And like I was telling you before the
Totally.
streamer, I might have said it before, I was like working internet technical support, and then I was doing some administrative work, and then I finally caught a break. I I played rugby for many years, and I was at practice one day, and one of the guys I played with happened to own a software company, which I did not know. And he's like, "Are you still looking for work?" And this is back in the day when Visual Basic was popular. He handed me a Visual Basic 6 CD-ROM. He said, "If you want to come work, just take a peek at this over the weekend and like kind of come in on Monday," kind of thing. It almost sounds like a some cheesy movie or after school special, but I'm like super grateful that he took a chance on me. Bob Meunier, I'm sure you're not listening on Twitch, but thank you. Um, but but even with that opportunity, like as I went to other jobs, there was never anybody mentoring or like guiding me. It was a lot of just reading up on stuff. Like I mean, don't get me wrong, I definitely, would talk with coworkers and stuff, and even pairing really wasn't a thing at the time.
Totally.
Um, and so I'm not trying to paint a picture of like sad little me, but it's just I think a lot of stuff I learned on my own more and struggled probably, whereas nowadays, you know there's so many great resources aside from all the stuff I mentioned that didn't exist. You've got stuff like Free Code Camp. There's all kinds of mentorship programs and stuff, and then there's
Yeah,
clearly other stuff like coaching, like you're mentioning. So it's I don't know. This kind of ties back into what I was saying before. It's kind of a great time to be a developer, even though there's a lot of things going on, and just having all these resources. And so like I feel like for sure something like this would have definitely helped, even like 6 years ago.
totally.
Um, and I did have one question though about like, would you differentiate coaching from mentorship? Because like mentorship, like
Yeah,
there's things there for sure that there's parallels or similarities maybe, but it's got to be
totally.
different.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some people try to draw lines too sharply, right? And they try to say, oh, coaching is this and mentoring is this, and there the two shall meet, right? Like they're totally different.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of overlap, but high level, the way that I think about coaching and mentorship. And this actually plays out for engineering managers too when you're thinking about how to support your reports.
Mm-hmm.
Mentorship is usually topic focused and educational. So I have a topic of expertise that I am going to help teach you and mentor you on and bring you through.
Yeah.
Whereas coaching, I think of more as pair programming for non-technical problems. And you can even
Yeah.
use coaching in technical situations. I do, but it's more about kind of like if I were coaching you on something, and we can get into a quick example of this in a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm here to ask questions, share
Mm-hmm.
context, sometimes share my experiences, but really to help you think about the problem and provide kind of the a reflection, a mirror, a sort of context. It's like rubber ducking in programming, except like
Yeah.
adding even more on that. And with rubber ducking, like one like the thing came from, oh yeah, as soon as I start explaining this problem to someone, I understand it better and I see the solution. I could have said it to a rubber duck. But
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the fascinating things I've seen is some people are better rubber ducks than others.
Okay.
And the way that that works is because when you explain things to them, they ask questions in a way that make you think about it in a different way.
Mhm.
And eventually, if you do that a few times, now you go to talk to them and you start explaining to them and you anticipate the questions that they were going to ask you, and it helps you solve the problem. And so they are a better rubber duck
Yeah.
because just by the virtue of interacting with them, it makes you think in a different way. And so, I mean, maybe the best way to demonstrate coaching would be to just do a micro coaching session here. We talked about this a little bit. Do you want to jump into that now or?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. And but side note about the rubber ducking, I purposely don't respond to people on Slack right away.
Mhm.
One for the rubber ducking effect, because like I can't tell you how many times I've seen it happen where somebody posts a question and then you go check like 10 minutes later and then they go, "Oh, never mind, I figured it out." They that adding that pause, and it's not because I don't want to help people, but I know if you give that pause, it can sometimes just unblock somebody because they start writing it
Totally.
down and stuff.
Totally.
But yeah, we could do a little micro coaching session. Yeah, I guess for me, so I got hired at Netlify as a staff engineer, and it's technically my first, I guess, staff plus role. I mean, I was a lead front end at Dev 2, and I've been senior, and like I was mentioning to you before the stream, not all companies even have these ladders for career. Like some places it's just you're a developer, or
Totally.
like, or you're
Yeah.
just a
Yep.
senior. So and and it can vary based, sometimes it's based on merit too. Like I remember when I worked at Autodesk, it's like my manager literally said, well, you have to work here 3 years at least because you're hired at senior level 12, so if you want to be a principal you got to be here at least 3 years. And anyways, um but oh, hey Ian. Ian's just saying in the chat, I love when I'm stuck on something, go look it up on Stack Overflow, and the answer I need was one I wrote years ago. Yeah, there's that too. Finding your own answers or your own blog posts for sure. But yeah, let's dig into the a little micro
Yeah.
coaching
So
session.
let's take this situation. So you're in your first staff plus role at Netlify.
Yeah.
Why don't you share a challenge that you're running into here and we can kind of work through it together?
Yeah, so hopefully I don't reveal any company secrets. So I might be a little slower to speak out about some of these things. But um, I guess the first thing I'd say is there's nothing negative really going on here. It's just more, I'm a little frustrated sometimes because like the role, I work on the frameworks team, which has very high visibility. And part of the role, even though it's maybe not explicitly said in the role, is there is a support engineering role into it kind of baked in. And and I'm okay with that, and I accepted that. But the thing is, we've just been doing a lot of support work lately, like pretty much almost the whole time I've been here. Like it is part of the job. Like this week I'm on support, like I was mentioning before the call, and that all goes fine. But the problem I keep running into is like, and my manager is super supportive, by the way. This is not me throwing my manager under the bus,
Totally.
just to be clear, Mark, if you're listening. No, Mark is definitely championing me to do things that are more staff like. The problem I keep running into is because these things are priorities, these support issues, and especially if it's like enterprise customers, it's not like I can just say whatever, I'll do it later. And so I keep kind of getting sucked in where I literally don't have the time to take a step back, like just look at everything, or like take on like a bigger picture project. And I don't know how to frame it aside from like like I'm not mad, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault either, because it's like just the situation that's been going on at work in terms of support.
Yeah,
And that's where I've kind of been struggling. And to be clear, I love working at Netlify, and my
totally.
coworkers are awesome, so that's all my disclaimers too.
Totally, totally. So let me state back to you what I think I heard just to make sure I understand it. So
Yeah.
you've been working at Netlify how long now?
It's gonna be a year and 2 months soon, so
So
still pretty
around a
fresh, I
year.
guess. Yeah.
So you've been working at Netlify about a year. It's your first Staff Plus role, and it feels like you're kind of almost trapped in reactive work pretty much the whole time, and not really being able to sort of step back and take a more
Yeah.
strategic view of what needs to be done. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah. That sounds pretty accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and one question I would ask you is, does it feel like this is just you, or is this team wide where it's all kind of in a reactive mode?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of us are in reactive mode still. There's just a lot going on. It's to give some context to frameworks land. It's like it's not like I'm working on a product and shipping like netlify.com, or like I'm working at some other company where I'm shipping one specific thing. This is it's a PaaS company, so a platform as a service. And basically, if somebody comes in and they say like, I'm deploying my Svelte site and there's an issue, or I deployed my next site and there's an issue, and here's my remix site. And so like there is, because it's support like in that sense, there's a lot of context switching as well, which kind of affects the being able to take the strategic view.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and again, like I said, it's a weird feeling I have, because it's not like I'm angry or
No,
upset or anything.
I
It's
totally
just the
get it. I
reality of it.
I mean, just to share a little bit, like the last team that I was managing, we had a
Yeah.
very similar situation where we were supporting a large swath of the product
Hmm.
and flooded with essentially customer support tickets, reactive work, and still
Yeah.
trying to make forward progress on more strategic initiatives. So this is a very common problem. I don't perceive it as you complaining about the situation. And you should feel like this is not a strange thing, right? This is normal.
Yeah.
Um, so what have you done so far to try to separate out some time for yourself to look at that bigger picture?
Yeah. So there's, I mean, there's definitely things I do like in general to like I box my calendar, like I have my focus times and so on. And so like, I work out in the morning. That's my me time. You can't book anything when I'm working out, etc. So like I think I have my time organized pretty well. It's just like, as I go into something, like, let me dig into this, oh, I get sucked out again. Just and and it's not even like I'm comfortable saying no to things. Like I've worked at places where it's like, we need to ship these three things this sprint, and one thing I've learned is, if you push back in a positive way, like, I can ship two of these things, and then you quickly see how people prioritize things, and something is really not that important. Uh,
Mhm,
but but here it's a little different, because a lot of things I can't really say no to, because they are, we're supporting things, and
mhm.
I do have a team with me as well. So like I do, like, even if there's stuff that I can do, I do delegate it to people sometimes, and it's not because it's beneath me. It's just I'm trying to, one,
Yeah.
spread knowledge, but also just, not spread myself too thin either. So I feel like I'm doing right things, but I still, like, clearly, I don't know,
Yeah,
something's missing, I
so
guess.
so that's interesting, right? So you've tried this tactic of you box your calendar and you have focus time,
Yeah.
but it's clearly not enough.
Yeah.
What would it take to make it give you that space?
Yeah. Like, I guess, you know, I guess I could be more explicit. Like I realize there's some fires going on right now, but I need these 2 hours to just, let me just dig into this particular thing. And maybe it is just that. It's just, and again, like I said, I'm not shy at saying no, I can't do this right now. I think it's just the nature of the work right now, and like, we're we're putting things in place and stuff to hope, like it's not like the whole world is burning right now, like,
Totally.
it's just, it's just the daily stuff, and
Well, absolutely, and that, like, interrupt style work, that has a very different, um sort of rhythm to it than bigger picture work and longer picture work. And similar to
yeah,
you've probably heard the thing about like if you have one meeting, it can actually disrupt a whole afternoon or a whole morning or whatever because like
yeah, yeah,
before the meeting you're thinking about the meeting and then after it you need to decompress and whatever. Like that same thing is true for interrupting your focused work, right? Like I have a
yeah,
3-hour focus block to work on the strategic thing and holy smokes somebody just slacked me and I lost my whole context.
yeah,
Right? You haven't lost the 5 or 10 minutes it takes to say, "Oh, can you talk to this person?" You've lost the 40 minutes that it took you to build
yeah,
up that context.
yeah. And especially if there's like, okay, I'm thinking about this meeting that's coming up, but if there's one in an hour from now, it's like nothing is really productive is going to happen in that
Yeah,
hour in between, it's like, uh, one thing I've been kind of milling around, but like, I'm also cognizant of like work life balance in the sense that like I definitely did not have work life balance in my early career. I was like always
yeah,
staying up too late and stuff. And but one thing I'm wondering is like there are evenings where I can just clear my head. There's no interruptions, but like I
yeah,
also don't want to. I also don't want to get into a habit of like I'm always working at night. But I'm wondering if like maybe start a day later, and then like do the
yeah,
meetings and whatever support, and then just say, hey, I'm checking out. Like I'm gonna go do something else for the rest of the afternoon, and I'm gonna use some focused time in the evening because like I have kids, but they're older now, so it's not like I have to worry about a baby tipping over or anything.
yeah,
So that's one thing I considered, but I'm slightly hesitant about that just because of what I mentioned. Like I don't want to be like always working at night either.
totally.
So
Well,
it's
so what would you need to do to be able to try that without having this
yeah.
concern of bleeding over into taking over your nights?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I like a side note about the coaching here. Like I know a lot of stuff you're just asking me, but it is just making me think. Even though like a lot of the stuff might sound obvious potentially, um,
It's
I
as
don't
I
know.
said, it's like advanced rubber ducking, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am
yeah,
I am helping you think through your problem.
yeah. No, I guess I could just say like I'm away at a conference next week, but maybe once I'm back, I could say like you know what, this week on Wednesday I'm gonna be there for the meetings, and then the afternoon I'm just not gonna be around, and I will focus, or like I'm around but I'm not real unless if something's on fire I will jump in, but otherwise I'm gonna focus later tonight, and maybe try that, and maybe not do it all the time, but like just sometimes, and it's so weird, like because like I mean I work in open source, but I also enjoy contributing open source, and I do content creation as well, like blog a bit and stuff, and like when I work on my blog or whatever, it's in the evening, like a Friday night. I'll be like, you know kids are doing something, and like I don't know, it's like there's this cloud that just disappears, and then like I'll be like I'm gonna write a blog post, and I just say I'm doing it right now, and then I just type away
Mhm.
and boom. So like I guess maybe trying it in the evening, like I was suggesting that you pulled out of me.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a reasonable thing. How will so one of the things I'm hearing from you is, you have this approach that has worked for non-work things. Maybe I can
Yeah,
try this in a work context.
yeah,
Another thing I heard was kind of a lot of mm, hedging around, oh, if something's really on fire, if this is happening, if this is happening. What would it take to set things up at work so that you could block yourself that block and not be worried about, oh, these things coming in?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, like this is some of the bigger work that we've been trying to work on. Like, um, because like my team, like there's there's three of us in North America, and then the rest are in the UK. So like half the team is gone around 2 p.m. my time, or 1 p.m. So yeah, I guess we do have documentation and stuff, and we've been building up stuff for support to take a peek at. It's just more a question of maybe boosting that stuff up. And these are things I started and haven't been able to finish yet. And it's not just me, like it's a team thing too. It's just kind of you know kickstarting it to basically kind of have like run books or support documents to just say like, hey, you ran into this issue, well, do this, like a lot of
Those
it sounds
things are
obvious.
exactly the kind of strategic, longer vision work that you're
Yeah,
struggling with here, right?
yeah, and these are the things that I've been trying to do, like and it's just I get sucked in, like I said, and it's just
Yeah.
the reality. But yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and it's not, and I definitely have confidence in my team. It's not like I think it's all on me. It's definitely not that. And there's some folks on the team that know a lot more about something than me. I'm never gonna pretend I know everything.
Mhm, mhm.
um but yeah, I think, yeah, just getting that stuff in place, and then like I think part of it is we're just not there yet, and it's kind of chicken and egg. I'm trying to do stuff like that, because
Yeah,
once I get to that, then I can focus on the bigger picture stuff.
right.
But then I ironically keep getting pulled away from doing stuff like that, or
Oh,
you know,
totally. There's a bootstrapping process here, right? Like, you need to be
yeah,
able to look far enough in the future to set yourself up so that you are less, or indispensable, so that
mhm.
then you can continue to look farther and farther in the future.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it's yeah, no,
Okay.
it's
Well, and it sounds
like you
like you
said.
have some of the fundamental pieces here, right? So you've identified a way that you can carve out some of that time in a way that
Hmm.
might not be fully sustainable, right?
Yeah,
Because, you're carving it out o- on a Wednesday night, not next week, but the week after. Is that what I heard? So
yeah,
2 Wednesdays from now, you're going to carve out some time in the evening. You don't want to
yeah.
do that on a long-term basis, but you've also now said, okay, this is what I can do to make it easier to carve out time.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm totally okay with like, I know sometimes you got to put in the work to,
Mhm.
just get stuff done, and I'm okay with that, like, um, yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And it sounds funny just talking about it, because a lot of this sounds very obvious that what we're discussing right now, I guess.
Mhm.
But I guess, like you said, it's advanced rubber ducking. So I like that term. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because
So do you feel like you have a concrete plan?
yeah, I think so for now. Like, I'll test this out and see how that goes. And like adjust if needed. Like I said, I definitely don't want it to be always like I'm gonna do something in the evenings always, but I think if I have to do that for a little bit to get to a place where I can function a little better
Mhm.
in a work context, I think that could be valuable. So I'm gonna put it in my notes here right now. Book next, or not, 2 Wednesdays from now. Work in evening. Yeah, yeah. No, it's super helpful, and like I feel like this is just I don't know. It's weird. I know this is coaching, but it just came out very naturally just talking to you about it. So
Yeah. So let's step back out now. That is what coaching is, right? Like
yeah,
that process, right? Contrast to, you mentioned mentoring. Mentoring, I might be like trying to teach you something about how to carve out your time or whatever. You already know this stuff, right?
yeah,
You know it, but we all get stuck inside of our own heads
hmm,
and we're stuck inside of our own situations. And what a coach can do is kind of help window that to you and show you that. And
hmm,
also like normalize, like, this is a situation. I summarized back your situation in a way that like you were able to that kind of made it a little bit more succinct and clear.
yeah,
And it's a common situation. And so you climb out of it in this way. And you know this, but seeing
hmm,
it is hard when you're in the middle of it.
yeah, yeah. It's almost kind of like, hey, I just got hit by a car and I'm dying, and you're floating above your body, going, okay, yeah, they're fixing me up. Okay, good, good. Oh, hey, I'm back. Maybe that's not the best example, but But yeah, being able to kind of see it, like you were able to kind of, well, you summarized it very well, what I was trying to articulate, which is helpful too, and hearing it being said back to you is helpful too. So it's yeah, I definitely see that, because this is the first time I've kind of done coaching. I can't think of, I mean, I've done tons of sports, and that's complete. It's coaching,
Yeah.
but that's a totally
It's a
different
different model.
context. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes there's more guidance. So what we just did right now is what I call like a completely directed coaching session, right? You came in with
Hmm.
your issue and we followed it down to kind of help you identify, what can you do to adjust it? How can you change the way you're approaching it to do
Yeah.
it? And a lot of times we'll come up with experiments. Some of them won't work, right? And this would actually, if we were doing something longer term, I'd say, okay, like this may not work. How might,
Yeah.
what can we learn from this? Even if it doesn't work, how can we continue to experiment to try to fix this sort of underlying issue?
Yeah.
Um,
And I was gonna say, one, I totally agree with that, and I I kind of want to articulate it. It's not like you go to one coaching session and everything's fixed, and I can totally draw parallels to this, like when I've gone to physio, like from sports injuries, or I go to my osteopath. It's not like a one and done, it's like, okay, yeah, we worked on the area, we iced you, okay, here's the physio exercise, I need you to come back for a whole month. It's not a it's basically not a one and done. Like, it can still be helpful one session, but to
yes,
really dig into
some
things, it's longer term.
exactly. Well, and the way I like to say it is like sometimes you'll get an insight that is transformational that like completely changes the way that you're looking at it. But
Hmm.
even with that transformation, then you've got to do behavior change. You've got to change the way you're sort of showing up in the world. And like we are creatures of habit, behavior change takes time and repetition. And
Hmm.
it's helpful to have support through that as well. And so, coaching kind of gets to walk both of those lines. I don't think we had a transformational shift in understanding here, but we had a little bit of a shift of wait, oh, I
Yeah.
have control over this, and oh, here's this thing that I've used effectively in the past that I can do something here.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's the behavioral piece. Okay, how do I apply this? How do I keep it happening? How do I get to a place where this is more consistent? And those they have different time scales.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. But even though this was a micro coaching, micro coaching session, I did find it very helpful. Um, so no, that's good. Yeah, I'm curious to see where things progress, and who knows, I might be hitting you up again for
Yeah,
another session.
totally.
So
Well, and the other thing that I was going to say, so that was a client directed session, right? You came with your
yeah,
issue. I will also with people use what I call coach directed sessions where we have a topic area,
okay,
and we are focused on that. And there's the process is often very similar, but an example of where I'm using that with folks is what I call my structured growth framework, which is something that I actually used to do with my reports as a manager as well. And it's
okay,
around kind of identifying what it is, the direction you want to grow, and what are the tools you have in your tool chest to get there. So we start with a session focused on goals. And I have
hmm,
a like worksheet to help you think through it and stuff like that ahead of time. But like we really want to get clear on like what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Then
hmm,
focus on strengths. What are the things that you bring to the table? How can you take better advantage of them? Then a session on weaknesses. And one of the things I like to do with weaknesses is kind of flip the script on it, right? Like
hmm,
many of us, we like to obsess on our weaknesses and like, I gotta fix this and I gotta fix this. But a lot of times those weaknesses are like two sides of a coin with our strengths, right? Like,
yeah,
I've worked with a lot of folks who have ADHD, and like their strengths are around they can hyper focus on something when they've got the attention, but their weaknesses are they get fragmented if it doesn't grab them, right? And like
okay,
those are two sides of that same challenge, the strength and the weakness. Like you're not going to fix the weakness
hmm,
without also getting rid of some of your strength, right? So I like to focus on weaknesses as like understanding where do you struggle and finding tools, tactics, and oftentimes people support that can help you work around those weaknesses without feeling like you have to fix them.
okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then the last in that structured growth sequence is we focus on roles. Like, what is your role today? What are the roles you want to get? Like, you want to be in a role that is more strategic and thinking longer term.
Yeah.
And how do we align those with your goals and use your strengths and the tactics that we found out to work around your weaknesses to get you there. And that's like a series of 4 sessions
Hmm.
um, that really kind of sets people in a direction. And I'll use that or recommend that for folks who are like in a moment of transition and trying to figure out what they want,
Hmm.
um, or who have never really thought about personal growth before. Right, like it's a great starting point of like, hey, I've never had a manager work me through a development plan. I've gotten
Yeah.
this way kind of to where I am by accident or by like meandering around, and now I want to think a little bit more focused about like what do I want and how do I get there.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And like, we're we've been talking like on the individual level, but do you also do this for like for what you were just saying there? Do you also talk about these things with full teams, or is it generally individuals? Like,
I
do you
have
go to
been mostly
orgs?
working with individuals so far.
Okay.
I've been thinking about, and I've had a couple conversations with folks about training managers on how to run that structured growth sequence. Because I found, as a
Yeah.
manager, I found it really useful. Um,
Hmm.
when I've talked to managers and I'm like, yeah, I have these worksheets, I have some scripts for myself of how I do the calls. They're like, oh, can I have some? Um, so if somebody's listening and you'd be interested in being trained on how to do that, like I would be happy to do that. But so far, I haven't really been pushing that. I've been focusing more on the individuals.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I guess it's a good place to start as well, and like refine the new biz, I guess, from starting with not necessarily smaller crowd, but like a one-on-one could definitely help shape the bigger picture long term.
Totally.
But
Well, and
yeah.
it's lovely. I love working with people because, one of the things you can do, and you can do this as a manager if you're coaching your reports, like the conversation we just had, you were manager and you could have had it, right? It's a
Yeah.
it's a approach to things. But you can have such an incredible impact on someone's experience and their direction by just helping them think through the challenges in front of them. Like it's so
Hmm.
much fun.
Yeah. No, 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 for sure. And like in retrospect, like the conversation we just had, like all of it seems very obvious to me now, but it just talking it through just solidified that yes, this is obvious. But it's kind of like I knew this probably, but just talking through it, like you said, just helps
It
it out. So
clarifies it, it crystallizes it, and it puts it back in your control.
yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know, not to switch gears, but I know you've started because I caught one of the not. Is it a podcast or just YouTube right now? Because I watched the one with Alan the other day.
Oh,
His
yeah, yeah,
last name's escaping me.
yeah.
Um,
Yes. So right now, I'm so this is a podcast I'm working on, which is a human skills podcast. And
okay,
the vision for that is actually to do less of this sort of interview style that we're doing, but more of a narrative style where each episode has a subject. I'll introduce it and weave together interview content.
okay,
However, as I got started doing that, I found that some of the interviews were just like they're too good to sit on for the length of time that it's going to take me to get that to happen. So I started publishing
yeah,
the interviews lightly edited on YouTube, and I have a
mm-hmm.
newsletter I'm sending out that kind of picks a theme from each interview and summarizes that, and goes out as well. So yeah, those are shipping
Okay,
today. The podcast will probably be closer to the end of this year, because
mm-hmm.
to really do that narrative style, I need a whole bunch of interview content, and so I'm collecting
Yeah,
that right now, talking with lots of different folks, and kind of organizing it, so that I can do that approach.
okay, yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. And I know even though I definitely have a very low achieving podcast at the moment because I've just been repurposing some content from some streams I've done. It's still a lot of work. Like I do want to edit them, like
Mhm.
and so it's also it just takes time too.
It absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a fun way to kind of dig into. Well, first of all, I appreciate you talking about all this today, but um, uh, since we're talking about podcasting and stuff, I can't remember it because it feels like ages ago at the start of the stream, but I'm curious how you got into JS Party, which is
Yeah.
a podcast that I think, like I said at the beginning, most people are probably the most familiar with you there, I think. Um,
Totally. So, how did I get involved with JS Party? I This comes back to a place I didn't get to in my sort of career history, but I was working at a design studio called Zerb, and I was
Okay.
leading work on their open source framework, which was Zerb Foundation, which was one of these. It was basically like a predecessor to Bootstrap in the CSS
Hmm.
framework space that then like was co-evolving there. Um, it is still around. It's more or less I think it's fallen by the wayside in a lot of ways. But
Okay.
anyway, I was leading this framework development for Zerb. I had come in later in the game. I wasn't one of the initial developers, but I was leading it, and I was going out and doing. I was doing a lot of. That was when I first got into like doing stuff on YouTube. We were publishing
Okay.
videos about the framework. This is when I first developed KBall as a public persona because at Zerb there were two Kevins, and so I was the second one, so I got a
Okay.
nickname. But then I was like out in public with this nickname, and everybody called me K-Ball, so I was K-Ball. Um,
Okay.
and I was going out to conferences and speaking, and it was at one of those conferences that I first met the guys behind Changelog and the Changelog family of podcasts.
Okay.
I was at All Things Open. I want to say it was like 2016 or 2017, something like that. And Adam Stacoviak, who is one of the founders of Changelog, was there, and he was interviewing speakers, and I was a speaker. And so, like, I sat down at his booth, and we chatted for like 45 minutes or an hour. I don't remember what it was,
Okay.
um, and had a good conversation. That interview was never published. It never went anywhere that I'm aware of, but we stayed in
Yeah.
touch. I joined the Changelog Slack community. We would chat periodically.
Okay.
Um, Later, after I guess that conference was probably 2016 because I feel like we then got in touch. It was like a year later. It was late 2017.
Okay.
Um, and Zerb had run into financial problems. I had been laid off. I was starting my own business. I was doing a lot of sort of writing about front end topics in JavaScript. I was that business. I ended up doing a lot of consulting. I was kind of doing what you would call fractional CTO work now, except then that name wasn't in vogue. But
Okay.
working with small companies who didn't have a technology leader and helping them bridge between stuff.
Okay.
Um, but so I was doing a bunch of this stuff, trying to be public, and Adam reached out and said, "Hey, we had this JS Party podcast that we started with three people, um, and three was not enough to keep it going. Like we were having trouble scheduling different folks, and so we
Okay.
paused it. We want to bring it back. We're looking for a to have more people this time, so it's easier to keep it going. Um,
Hmm.
would you be interested in being one of our panelists?"
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Like I would be really excited to try that.
Yeah.
So I was looking the other day, the first, that JS Party restarted in April. Let me find it real quick. It was April 6th, 2018 was the first restarted
Okay.
episode that ran. I was not on that one, but I was on the next one, which was April 13th. So that's my first appearance on JS Party, which puts us at just past 5 years now that I've been on this
Wow.
podcast. Um,
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah, it's one of my go-to. I mean, I listen to several podcasts, but it's one that I consistently listen to. It's got a lot of great guests, but also it's just great conversation too. And I'm a fan of all things web, including JavaScript, so it's like definitely pertinent to my interests as well. So, but yeah, kudos to that. It's super awesome, and I just want to kind of give a funny shout out. I was listening, I think it was, I forget when it was, maybe 3 weeks ago, and you had that one on networking.
Hmm.
Um, and I just want to tie this into something that I always tell people to do, but like, you're like, hey, reach out to us, and so like, I was like, you know, YOLO, I'm just going to say, hey, what's up? Caught the podcast, and we connected on LinkedIn, and it's something, and this also goes back to when you said yes to the podcast, like taking those opportunities is something I always tell people, seriously consider opportunities when they're presented to you because not everybody gets them, and it's like, I remember like when I worked at Dev 2, there we were doing Hacktoberfest, and like me and my coworker were kind of the face of it for Dev 2, and they said like they need somebody to do a talk for DigitalOcean. Does anybody want to do it? And at this point, I had, aside from one meetup at a JavaScript meetup in Montreal, I had given no talks aside from internal stuff. I just said, yeah, sure, like
Yeah,
not, just wanted to put that out there to take
well,
opportunities when they present themselves, if that
totally.
makes
And
sense.
I'll tell you. So we Nick and I issued open invitations to connect to us on LinkedIn. I think you and maybe one other person, right? Of the
Okay.
over 10,000 people who've listened to that episode, maybe 2
Yeah.
people reached out, right?
Okay.
So it sets you apart. And like I've had conversations now with several people who've connected to me on LinkedIn, and said like, "Oh, I just realized you who are writing things on LinkedIn are the same person I've listened to on JS Party. This is cool." And I'll say to them, "Hey, yeah, cool. Do you want to do a get to know me call, or get to know you call? Like let's hang out a little bit, right?"
Yeah.
Um, people that you're listening to online. I mean, there are some people who are mega famous and like they
Yeah.
get
Yeah. For sure.
bombarded by stuff. Like I was talking to someone who's like, I emailed Dan Abramoff and he didn't get back to me. And I'm like, Dan Abramoff probably gets 100 or cold emails a day. Like it's not
Yeah.
about you, it's about he's flooded. But a lot of
Yeah.
us don't, right? And like if you reach out to me as an interested human being, I will talk with you as an interested human being. Like I like to talk with people about stuff, whether it's
Hmm.
JavaScript related, whether it's tech industry related, whether it's startup related. As I said, I've co-founded 2 startups now. I've worked at 4 others. Like if you're curious about what the startup experience is like ping me on Twitter, ping me on LinkedIn. I'm more on LinkedIn these days than Twitter because Twitter's this like ongoing dumpster fire.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Big time. Big time.
but yeah, I'm always happy to chat.
Yeah. So like, folks, if you're checking out the recording, or folks in the chat now, like, yeah, definitely reach out. And it's, you know, one thing I've learned about, like, I hate the term networking. I've always never liked it because I always associate it with, like, in my head, like MLMs or whatever. But it's this. I like to kind of not dumb it down, but it's just hanging out with people or meeting somebody. Like the. But and kind of also getting back to your, like, the human skills, like I don't like saying soft skills either, and I always say the I, I say it kind of sarcastically, but the don't be an asshole skills, like, it's
Yep.
like, because it's surprising how many people, like, I don't know, I feel weird telling people that they have to learn these skills. Like, I understand not everybody has them, but it's something like, it should
Well,
it's pretty important.
so here's the thing, and something that I don't feel like I have solved yet, but I'm trying to solve, which is I think a lot of us who are in tech got exposed first to things like writing and communication and speaking in places by teachers who were not really good at breaking it down for the way our brains work.
Yeah.
And they would say things that sounded very vague and fuzzy and like, oh, you've just got to kind of get it or try it or whatever. And like we like concrete things. Like give me an algorithm, darn it. And like those types of
Yeah.
things. Well, like people are more variable than machines.
Hmm.
However, there are patterns you can learn. There are tactics that you can apply without having to have some sort of like fuzzy meta understanding. Like you can learn how to better interact with people and and by better, I mean like interact with people in ways that they will respond better to. They will be
Yeah.
happier responding to you, and that they will like you will get more of what you want. And you can learn like there's very concrete tactical things you could do. Like I'll break down one very quickly, which is just try to avoid using why when asking somebody a question.
Okay.
Try to avoid using why. Find a different way to say it. Like example, like if you let's go back to your example you shared. Like why haven't you put aside time for yourself? Right?
Hmm.
When I say that, it immediately feels attacking. We perceive it as
Yeah.
attacking. I don't know why that happens. I have learned this rule by rote. But if you ask somebody why, a question that starts with why, they will feel defensive. And if
Yeah.
you frame it slightly differently and you say, okay, um, what do you think has kept you from reserving time like for yourself?
Yeah. No,
Suddenly
no, for
it's
sure.
less of an attack question, right? Like, and you don't need to know why, though we can possibly dig into some of the reasons behind this if it's interesting. But like, there are things that you can learn purely algorithmically, purely that you could just apply that will improve your ability to interact with folks in a way that you
Yeah.
gets you the outcomes you want.
Yeah, and as soon as you said that, why aren't you doing that? Like I could, and I know you're not being accusatory, but it does sound accusatory.
It
Like
does.
So, and this is another thing. It's like there's something I really enjoy is it's a project called Conventional Comments, and I try to use it within like reviewing things. Because the way even when you review something, especially it's almost always in an asynchronous context. You're on GitHub or GitLab or whatever. You're reviewing the PR. If you say like, "Hey Joe, please change this. This is wrong." Like that. I mean, I'm oversimplifying the review here, but that's like, okay, Joe, you did something terrible. Versus, you take the person out of the review. Like you kind of you're really reviewing the code. You're not pointing fingers at people, and like obviously there's a whole other conversation if somebody's consistently not doing something great, but like the tone and how you present your feedback is huge. So that's all I want to say about that. But I see in the chat, Nixia says, "Why
Why
avoid
avoid
why?"
why? Well, and also I was trying to respond in the chat to Esteves Luis, and I couldn't quite get there. But he or she was commenting. They were commenting that they signed up for Twitter, and it's been more helpful than yours on LinkedIn, which is great if you can get it. Like my historic experience with Twitter was it was
Yeah,
phenomenal for conversations, connecting with people. And I
yeah,
have unfortunately found that declining a lot over the course of the last year. A lot of people have left entirely. There's
yeah,
so much more spam. Like, oh my goodness, people DMing me with crypto scams and nudes and this, that, the other, and it's just like this experience has
yeah, yeah,
gotten terrible. Um,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I
if
definitely
you're
avoid
finding
that.
a niche that's where you're getting good conversation, that's great. Um, and then the question around why avoid why, it gets to exactly what Nick was saying, right? When someone asks you a question starting with why, we immediately like it feels accusatory. It
Yeah.
and I don't actually know what makes that the case, but it causes like your fight or flight mechanism to start to kick in and you feel defensive.
Hmm.
And once you feel defensive, you're going to respond in a way that is less productive and
Hmm.
that it goes down from there. And a lot of times you'll end up with people like, why are you upset with me? Why are you doing this? Why? And it's like, all I was trying to do was like mirror to you a situation and get
Yeah.
you to think about it. And it started coming off as an attack. And now we're fighting instead of talking productively.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it too is it's not your intention wasn't to be accusatory, and that's why even when I write things sometimes I'll pause, and sometimes I'll ask a coworker or maybe my manager depending on who I'm sending to. I'll say like, I'm gonna send this to so and so. How does this sound? Do you think it sounds okay? Like, and sometimes even just getting a second opinion on things definitely helps too. But
Yeah. And once again, it helps to think about it as like we are like they're trying to parse the things you're saying. Like I've heard folks say like, "Oh, that's not what I meant. I meant
yeah.
this," and feel like that gets them off the hook. And honestly, like if I write a piece of code and the compiler says syntax error or
Hmm.
it does something that wasn't what I intended, do I say, "Oh, you're wrong. That's not what I meant." I
Yeah.
don't. I change what the code that I've written to communicate to the machine what it was I was trying to communicate. One of the people I interviewed had this great quote. They said, "Your job is not to say your thing. Your job is to say whatever it will take to get your thing communicated to the mind of the person you're talking to."
Hmm.
And those sound like they're the same thing, but they're often not.
Yeah, no, no, totally, totally. No, it's great. Hope that answers. I'm not sure what your actual name is, Nick. The funny thing about being on Twitch is like half the time I'm trying to pronounce some of the handles. So I think it's Nixia 618, but hopefully that
It's
helped.
all good.
Yeah.
That's actually the fun thing about having KBall as my handle and KBall as my nickname. And I have like it's a diversion, but I have started to conceptualize KBall as his own personality, separate from Kevin.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Um, and it's not quite that extreme, but it's really it helps me step into a way of being in a space that works well in that space. So like KBall is an
Yeah,
extrovert, life of the party, talking to people, hosting shows on JS Party, what have you.
yeah.
Kevin's a little bit shyer and more of an introvert, right? So, and those are two facets of me, but it helps me to sort of
Mhm.
explicitly say, okay, I'm stepping into the K-ball persona because this is something that works for this space.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Not to stretch it too far, but putting on another mask or something. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. You know, it's like it's K-ball time, or it's like this is me
Yeah.
time, and
It's like
yeah,
I for a long time I was thinking about pitching a talk that was your Twitter handle is your rapper name, right? Like it's like a rapper name. It's like this is the persona that I'm presenting in this space.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Cool, cool, cool. Well, I know we've gone over a bit here. I unfortunately do have to get back to work at some time. Speaking of being able to focus on some more strategic things, but I really want to thank you for taking the time. I know you've got a lot on the go, so appreciate you hanging out with me today. And thanks for the folks in the chat with the questions and stuff. Um, I'm gonna drop a link again, just where all the places where folks can find you, including the YouTube channel, humanskills.co. It's all in there. I caught that episode with Alan. I loved it. I'm definitely going to be listening to some other episodes. It's a new channel, so definitely go give a like and a subscribe and start that growing. And yeah, I guess before we call it a day, anything else you want to mention before we kind
No,
of
just don't
say?
hesitate to reach out. If the coaching intrigued you, I offer a free exploratory call, so you can have the same session I had with Nick, except we go a whole hour. So, if you want to
Okay.
just see what that's like, don't hesitate. I love, and the nice thing about doing that is if it works out and you want to hire me as a coach, great. If it doesn't, we've had a great conversation. Like it's a
Yeah.
win-win.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And yeah, no, cool. And I will keep you posted on how things work out for me once I'm back from that conference. And yeah, the only thing else I was going to mention is just check out the schedule. Lots of other great guests coming on in the coming weeks. Not next week. I'm at RemixConf. If you are at RemixConf, though, do not hesitate to say hello to me. I am extroverted, so I will talk to you like anything. But after RemixConf next week, I'm going to be hanging out with the creators of Wasp. It's a full stack development framework with React and Node.js, and lots of other cool stuff going on. Going to be hanging out with Colby Fayok from Cloud and Air. We're going to build something cool. All kinds of stuff. Tigris data. So many things. Check out the schedule. I'm not going to read the whole schedule out because I don't want to bore Kevin to death. But
All good, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, this has been great, and thanks again, K-Ball. And if you
Yeah,
just
thanks
don't
for
mind
having me
staying
on.
on for 1 second here, and everybody else, I'll see you in 2 weeks.